Tengan todas, todes y todos. La Facultad de Derecho se complace en darles la bienvenida a la conferencia magistral impartida por el doctor Bruce Ackerman, Reconstructing Democracy and the Rule of Law After Trump. Sin más, cedo el uso de la voz al doctor Diego Valadez.
Gracias. Agradezco mucho la distinción de poder moderar esta mesa en representación de la directora del Instituto de Investigaciones Jurídicas, la doctora Mónica González Contró, que por razones de salud se vio impedida para estar con ustedes y con todos nosotros esta tarde. De manera que, de manera indirecta, y por esa razón, me corresponde el privilegio de dar la palabra a quienes van a intervenir en el curso de la sesión. En primer lugar, les voy a solicitar atreverme a hacerlo en su propia casa, unas palabras de nuestra directora de la facultad, apuntando que por razones de compromisos académicos, según nos ha comentado los integrantes de la mesa, tendrá que retirarse después de unos minutos para cumplir con un compromiso en uno de los órganos colegiados de la universidad. Señora directora, muchas gracias por darme esta oportunidad.
Should I start? You start or do I?
No, here's
I start.
ahí.
Oh, you go.
Ahí.
Ya.
Sí, ese orden.
Good.
Muy buenas tardes. Muy buenas tardes tengan todas, todos ustedes. Antes que nada y en nombre de quienes conformamos esta comunidad académica, deseo expresar un afectuoso y respetuoso saludo al doctor Bruce Ackerman, quien nos honra con su visita y con la conferencia magistral de esta tarde. El doctor Ackerman, sea usted bienvenido a esta su casa, la Facultad de Derecho, que el día de hoy no solo abre sus puertas, sino también se dispone con particular expectación a la convocatoria, a esta conversación rigurosa que su visita nos convoca. Asimismo, extiendo un cordial saludo a quienes me acompañan en este presidium, al doctor Diego Valadez, investigador emérito del Instituto de Investigaciones Jurídicas y como ya anunció, estará acompañando y moderando la mesa. A la doctora Andrea Pozas Loyo, también investigadora del mismo instituto, al doctor Rodrigo Brito Melgarejo, jefe de la División de Estudios de Posgrado de la Facultad de Derecho, al maestro Roberto Cabrera Rodríguez, coordinación de vinculación académica de nuestra facultad y a quien le corresponde la vinculación internacional, y desde luego al doctor John Mill Ackerman Rose, director del Programa Universitario de Estudios sobre Democracia, Justicia y Sociedad, investigador y también docente de esta casa de estudios. En este sentido, constituye un verdadero honor recibir en este recinto del posgrado de nuestra facultad a una de las mentes más influyentes de la teoría constitucional contemporánea y de la filosofía política. Me refiero, por supuesto, al doctor Bruce Ackerman, profesor de Derecho y Ciencia Política en la Universidad de Yale. Su obra se sitúa en la confluencia entre la teoría constitucional, la filosofía política, el derecho comparado, el análisis económico del derecho y la historia constitucional de los Estados Unidos, siempre atravesada por una constante preocupación por la justicia social. Su producción académica es industriosa, vasta y profundamente influyente, marcando generaciones completas de juristas y científicos sociales. Entre sus obras más destacadas se encuentran We the People, volúmenes 1, 2 y 3, Social Justice in the Liberal State, The Failure of the Founding Fathers, Before the Next Attack, The Stakeholder Society, Es además miembro del American Law Institute y de la American Academy of Arts and Science. Distinciones que reflejan la calidad de su pensamiento, así como su impacto permanente en la comprensión del constitucionalismo democrático. La obra del doctor Bruce Ackerman ha introducido una de las reformulaciones más sugerentes del constitucionalismo democrático contemporáneo al desplazar su comprensión de la rigidez normativa hacia la densidad de la experiencia histórica. En su planteamiento, la Constitución no se agota en una dimensión textual ni en la regularidad institucional, sino que se inscribe en una dinámica más compleja en la que la vida democrática oscila entre la normalidad de la política ordinaria y aquellos momentos excepcionales en los que la ciudadanía irrumpe para redefinir los fundamentos del orden constitucional. Esta distinción permite advertir que la legitimidad constitucional no proviene únicamente de procedimientos establecidos, sino también de episodios de movilización y deliberación intensificada que bajo ciertas condiciones reconfiguran el sentido del orden jurídico y político. De este modo, su pensamiento no solo describe la arquitectura institucional de la democracia, sino que revela su carácter inestable, abierto y en última instancia susceptible de transformación frente a las tensiones del poder. Es precisamente desde esta comprensión que en esta tarde del 19 de marzo de 2026, en la que, dicho sea de paso, conmemoramos los 214 años de la promulgación de la Constitución de Cádiz de 1812, se nos convoca a la conferencia titulada Reconstructing, Democracy and the Role of Law After Trump. En esta ocasión, se nos invita a reflexionar sobre si frente a experiencias recientes de profunda disrupción institucional, la democracia constitucional puede no solo resistir, sino también reconstruirse a sí misma. Ahora bien, para propiciar la apertura de esta conversación, me gustaría brevemente proponer 3 coordenadas de reflexión. En primer lugar, asumir que la democracia constitucional no constituye un estado de cosas dado ni una conquista definitiva, sino que es una práctica en permanente construcción, siempre expuesta a la tensión entre la estabilidad y el cambio. Este es en buena medida el zeitgeist de nuestra época, así como una tarea inagotable semejante a la que encarna el mito de Sísifo. En segundo término, conviene atender a ciertos indicadores que permiten aproximarnos al estado actual de nuestras democracias, particularmente en México. El informe de The Economist Intelligence Unit señala que el índice de democracia en México pasó de 6.09 en 2019 a 5.32 en 2024, lo que ubica al país en la categoría de democracia híbrida. En una línea similar, the Global State of Democracy Institute advierte una disminución cercana al 15% en el índice de desarrollo democrático entre 2023 y 2024, con un puntaje de 4.772. Estas cifras aportan elementos para una reflexión más rigurosa sobre las condiciones en que actualmente se desenvuelven nuestras instituciones, así como sobre los desafíos que enfrenta la experiencia democrática en los contextos contemporáneos. Finalmente, conviene reconocer que las democracias constitucionales rara vez se fracturan en un solo instante o a través de un coup d'état. Por el contrario, tienden a erosionarse de manera gradual desde su propio interior. Ya desde finales del siglo XX, el gran politólogo Juan Linz advertía que los mayores riesgos para la democracia no siempre provienen de rupturas abruptas, sino de procesos más sutiles como la polarización creciente, la deslegitimación de las instituciones y la progresiva intolerancia hacia el disenso. En esta misma línea, los estudios contemporáneos de Steven Levski y Daniel Ziblatt han insistido en que el deterioro democrático puede operar precisamente a través de los propios cauces de la legalidad, cuando las reglas del juego son instrumentalizadas para concentrar poder y debilitar contrapesos. Estas tres coordenadas que planteo, desde luego, no pretenden agotar la complejidad de un fenómeno como la democracia constitucional, sino apenas delinear el horizonte de preguntas que esta tarde nos interpelan en la Facultad de Derecho. Se trata de interrogantes que exigen diagnóstico, pero también crítica y reconstrucción, como el mismo título de la ponencia lo sugiere. En este marco de reconfiguración se sitúa precisamente la voz del doctor Bruce Ackerman, cuya obra adquiere una relevancia singular. Su pensamiento ofrece siempre herramientas analíticas para comprender tanto las tensiones que atraviesan los órdenes constitucionales como los procesos mediante los cuales estos pueden rearticularse tras episodios de profunda disrupción. Los invito a que escuchemos con mucha atención y apertura intelectual la conferencia magistral del doctor Bruce Ackerman, con la convicción de que en ella no solo hallaremos posible respuesta, sino sobre todo preguntar más todavía, ¿no? Profundizar y desde luego, pues sin más, solamente mencionar que tenía 15 años que el doctor Bruce Ackerman no visitaba la UNAM en calidad de ponente y eligieron la Facultad de Derecho, desde luego en colaboración con el Instituto de Investigaciones Jurídicas, para esta magna exposición. Muchísimas gracias y bienvenido, doctor.
Después de esta muy brillante introducción, gracias por sus palabras, señora directora. Profesor Ackerman.
Well, thank you very much. Before we start, notice there are some empty seats. And if people could walk in and fill them, why not? Good. Well, of course, we are in the middle of a tragedy. The American Constitution has collapsed, simply collapsed, as a result of President Trump's assaults, unending assaults on different dimensions of the foundational framework of American constitutional understanding and existence. So there are two possible alternatives. One is that the next president will be his son-in-law, at which point this will be the end of American democracy. And of course, one of the reasons I was more than happy to accept this kind invitation was that the relationship between the United States and Mexico is special. And we can't escape this tragic outcome. However, for reasons that I will actually describe, there is a very good reason to suppose that the next president of the United States will not be in following down Trump's pathway. He or she might be a social democrat or a conservative or a centrist, but however different they may be so far as their own visions of the future are concerned, they all will reject this disaster. In which case, the United States will have a rare historic opportunity. How can we reconstruct our fundamental institutions so as to reduce, not eliminate, but reduce the likelihood of another Trump? That is the question I will be asking today and trying to present my answers as in an effort to generate for over the next year or three, because this coming year we have the midterm elections, which are very important, and then we have the presidential elections in 2028, which are even more important. The point of this talk is to provoke some ideas from you. And especially ideas about how the United States and reformers, committed Democrats, can collaborate, because it's possible. All right. So I'd like to begin my discussion of serious reforms. And by serious reforms, I don't mean fantastic utopian speculations. It's easy to engage in speculation. What I'm looking for are concrete, particular reforms that are serious and significant and will reduce, if not eliminate, another demagogue of this kind or some other kind. To begin, I want to challenge a very familiar assertion that you will read in the newspapers all the time as simply incorrect. Whatever newspaper or media you look at, everyone agrees that American politics right now is extremely polarized, that there are these two sides that hate each other, that can't work with one another. This is false. The Gallup poll, which, much to their credit, has sustained its reputation for integrity and serious empirical work every month, takes a random sample of about 3,000 individuals which are selected to reproduce the geographic, age distribution, wealth distribution, educational level of the American population. And they ask the following question. The sample is also selected from all voters who have voted at least once in the last 6 years, so that people who are so alienated and who don't never vote, this is a terrible thing, but they won't make a difference in the next election. And that's what we're talking about here. So they ask all of these people, do you consider yourself a Republican or a Democrat, or do you consider yourself an independent who, when you go and vote, vote on the merits of the candidate, regardless of, sometimes it's Democrat, sometimes it's Republican, but independent. At the present time, and I'm simplifying, but since the year 2000, so we're talking about the last 25 years, the results have been really quite consistent. 30%, 30% of, yo puedo hablar español, so but con acento castellano. But we'll keep it in English. When you have questions, speak a little slowly and speak Spanish. And that you're more comfortable, that's fine with me. The 30% say I'm a Republican. 30% say I'm a Democrat. 40%, 40% say I'm an independent. Rather than polarization, there is this enormous number of voters in the center. Then the next question that's asked is, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, not any longer, they don't ask the independents, are you a person who would never vote for the other party? So to take me, for example, I am an extremist. I am a strong Democrat. I will not vote for the other party. But then there are weak Democrats who sometimes will vote. Generally, they're tending to the Democratic side, but they're not strong for it. Both Republicans and Democrats split evenly. Half are strong Democrats and strong Republicans, and half are weak or Republicans and Democrats. So what all this adds up to is that if we take all the American voters, there is 30% are polarized, 15% on the left and 15% on the right. And 40% are not polarized at all. So the question is, how could this electorate even nominate Trump? Or on the other side, because there are leftist extremists, Bernie Sanders is a leftist extremist. How could either of these people be seriously considered for the nomination, let alone win the election? The answer is remarkably straightforward. The United States nominating system for the Democrats and Republicans is uniquely bad in the world. I think there are many bad systems, but this is a very bad one. Independents are not allowed to vote in the primaries. You have to be a registered Democrat to vote in the Democratic primary. If you are a weak Democrat and think that a Republican is better this time, you can't vote for him. Now, I should say that this is a realistic description. If you are willing to fill out a large amount of paperwork in a very short period of time, you can switch. But it's 3 or 4 hours of legalistic effort, and almost nobody does it. So that's the first feature of the American system, which is very much unlike. I'm not going to talk about Mexico. I'll let you bring in Mexico. If we look at Europe, there's one and say, well, how do they nominate candidates for the president in France? Sorry. The answer is that everybody votes for this on the same ballot for who they think should be the candidates. I'll describe the process more elaborately later. In the United States, that simply isn't the case. So the first simple reform is to say there should be an open primary, or in which all the candidates, the potential candidates, are listed, and everyone gets to vote, including the independents. This simple point, which is perfectly constitutional, and that it does not require enormous engineering and institutional dynamics and things of this kind. This simple point will significantly reduce the chance of an extremist coming out as a leading candidate. Not eliminate it, but significantly reduce it. And much to I have been, along with many others, campaigning for this reform for 25 years, and we're getting more success. So, for example, in Alaska, this last election, there was an open primary. Everybody voted for candidates who qualified by having a certain level of support. And people voted to determine who should be the top two. And then whoever became the top two then ran against one another. And surprisingly enough, the candidate from a party that very rarely gets a seat in the House of Representatives got one. Now, similarly in California, they have, against my publicity advice, they call it the jungle primary. And once again, the top two are selected in a way that isn't well designed, but nonetheless is an indication that this reform could be enacted relatively easily if in 2028 a president of the United States says, "My fellow Americans, we've lived through it, there's a tragedy. Let's try to do things that will make it less probable the next time around." I think, though, that we should look more carefully at the system of nomination before we move on to my next reform, because all of the countries of Europe, democracies of Europe, have from the beginning of from the end of the Second World War, even though they've been very different from one another, have really done a remarkably thoughtful job in designing their nomination and election system. Why? Because they lived through Adolf Hitler. And Adolf Hitler was an extremist who actually exploited the nomination and selection system of the Weimar Republic in a way that led everyone to say, well, we can't allow another Hitler to come in. Even though at the present time, of course, there are would-be extremists. Alternative for Deutschland has 25% of the vote. I mean, I don't mean to say that this isn't a problem, and we'll get maybe to the why. What's at the core of this problem? Why are the people voting for extremists? But before we get there, let me tell you how things work in France. I use France because it's a presidentialist system. There are 3 rounds of the nomination process. In the first round, if you are, let's say you are think that the most important issue is global warming, and you're a green, right? And you organize a political green party, and it gets 5% of the vote. You move to the second round. If it doesn't get 5% of the vote, you drop out. So what that means is in the first round, you're going to have 10, 15 political parties pinpointing different issues. Perhaps one set of issues could be a gay marriage. Another set are anti-poverty measures. Another set is let's have the free market. The next round, however, predictably, will have many fewer, let's say 5 parties that have made the 5%. Or 7.5%. I mean, it's 5% or it's 7.5% in different countries in Europe, but it has to get to over a threshold. In the second round, one of the important features is that a very substantial percentage of the voters can't vote for their candidate a second time because he's dropped out. Let's imagine that a gender equality drops out. Then the people who voted for gender equality have to ask themselves, what's the next best candidate? Okay. Then the 2 winners. Then in the third round, we have the 2 winners who run for the presidency. Once again, a large percentage of the people who voted in the second round have to consider a new candidate. They have to address it with an open mind. And so it's terribly important basically. Let's take Macron in the last election. You see, the question with Macron was he going to face someone of the extreme right or of the left? And the answer was he confronted someone of the right by a little bit. That's why he won. If he confronted someone on the left, maybe he wouldn't have won. But the fact of the matter is, people with an open mind voted that way, which leads me to my second reform. For 35 years, a colleague of mine, Jim Fishkin, and myself, he is a professor at Stanford, have been developing and acting upon in many contexts the idea of a day of deliberation. We published our first version of this book in 2004, and Fishkin, who this is his life work, I am a kibitzer friend and a fellow worker, he has admirably devoted his life to developing the techniques for encouraging thoughtful decision by the general public. Okay, how does it work? Then I can give you examples. But when we wrote the book in 2004, well, let me say this. We do it this way. How does it work? On Deliberation Day as a national holiday, you have two choices. One choice is to spend the day with your family and friends. The other choice is to spend the day clicking on your internet connection at home. And in the first hour, let's just keep it at the final stage of the election between the two candidates. In the first hour, the candidates give their presentations of what they consider to be the most fundamental reasons why they should be elected rather than their competitor. Then in the next hour, you click and you encounter 12 other people, selected in a way that we can talk about later, but selected in a way so that it's the people who you encounter will certainly not be your friends, and will be distributed on the basis of their age, geographic area, and things of that kind. And you introduce yourselves, and the question for the House is, what more do you want these candidates to? What are the issues that they haven't talked about enough? And at the end of the 45 minutes, you have selected 2 or 3 in a rank order. And so has lots of other people, right? And you click again, and you find yourself in front of an assembly of 450 people. In a country like Mexico and the United States, just imagine how many of these things are going on simultaneously. And then there is a judge or some neutral person and a representative of both sides, but not the candidates anymore. And For the next hour, you, or an hour and a half, a person from a representative of your small group asks the question, Mr. Trump, why is it that you are seriously thinking about invading Cuba? And the representative of Mr. Trump, let's put this, before this election, says, well, here are the reasons. And then the other side says, those aren't good reasons. Here are the reasons. Then your group has an opportunity to follow up with a question or two. It all takes place in 7 minutes or something like that. And then the next person is called, the next group is called, and the discussion, the person who's reading off the question says, Miss Democrat, why are you requiring every parent to vaccinate their children against the flu when there is not enough evidence that it actually works, and there's evidence that it doesn't, that it hurts people? And the candidate for the other side answers, and once again the Trump person then comes in, then etc. And so it proceeds. The reason why each group has enumerated 3 or 4 questions is because sometimes their first question has already been preempted by the time it comes up. So half of the people come give questions, and it's about 11 o'clock or 10:30 or 11, and everybody then goes back to the 13 group mode, and they talk about what they heard. Each person having 5 minutes goes around, and then it's lunchtime. After 45 minutes, they come back and say, what questions should we ask this time around? Half of them haven't had a chance to ask any questions, and they're the persons who are going to ask, they get the first choice. But then, depending on how things go, there'll be a lottery so that some other people, so some groups get a second chance. Then the last question, and this is a secret ballot, is who do you think should win? This is totally secret ballot, and you click. We've also asked them beforehand, when they come in, who do you think should win? An enormous percentage of cases, it's it's an order of magnitude. I would say it's 60% of the cases that we've run this, and Fishkin has run this not only in the United States but throughout the world. What we ask these people in this deliberative polling exercise, as it's called, is before you come in, would you say that you're a strong let's say the Republicans are a number one. If you're strongly for the Republican, please hit 1. If you're strongly for the Democrat, please hit 5. If you're don't know, 3, etc. The remarkable thing is that in a very substantial percentage of the cases, 10% or more of the voters shift from a 2 to a 4 or 4 to a 2. And the reason why I'm saying 2 to a 4 or 4 to a 2 is because that means they come in voting Democrat and they come out voting Republican or vice versa, because intensity doesn't count. And the 3s we consider as, probabilistic 50%. How many elections would switch as a result of deliberation day? A significant number. But that's only the beginning. Why is that good? Because the vote will express a much more considered opinion than exists at present. Once again, we are terrible in that the primaries not only are Democrat and Republican and nothing in between, but they're held, the key primaries are held in March, April of this coming year, way before November and election. So that means that, and they're also held in funny places, like so you're like, are you going to freeze and come out and vote for Bernie Sanders or not? But the key thing is, you see, that this also, the timing encourages extremism. Most people have a lot of things to do with their time, like take care of their kids, work, be a little league coach, whatever, right? There is, we have done surveys of this. We've asked on polling what a percentage of people are sort of think that they really have an obligation and do spend a good deal of their spare time following politics. We asked then also what percentage of the population spends a great deal of their time following sports. The answer is that the number of political junkies is the same as the answer as the number of sports junkies. And of course, those committed people tend to be extremists because they think that a lot is at stake and they think that they've worked out some coherent position. And the aim and their obligation is to push it. So both by timing and by this closed primary system, we'll call it, we greatly increase the probability of extremists running against one another, or maybe only one extremist, and so and a moderate. But one serious person, not moderate is not the right word, someone who is a serious free marketeer is within the boundary of plausible answers. Someone who thinks that we should deport millions of resident aliens who have lived in this country for 30 years, well, that's a little bit stronger. In any event, I'm only emphasizing this because it's a reasonable question. What is extremism? And the answer is, it depends on the context. But this institutional structure that I'm advancing is the context. We're redesigning the context. This is what constitutionalism is about, to redesign institutions to confront serious problems. All right. When we, of course, there are lots of basic issues in designing a deliberation day statute, which I will not go into right now. We'll see, because I want to elaborate some more reforms. And I very much invite you to write me emails if you have a good idea or a bad idea. You know, because the point is not for me to, the point is to really provoke serious discussion. Because if the scenario operates so that there is a non-Trumpist, this will be a moment of opportunity. People will say, we have to do something now. If we lose this opportunity and we, do one or another important thing which doesn't talk about the design of the presidential process, 2 or 3 years later, it will drop away. So it's terribly significant and important to provoke ideas right now, and that's why what I'm trying to do. But the one key point, though, that I think is worth emphasizing is this. Here you're making this choice. Shall I spend the day with my family, or shall I engage in an act of citizenship, as opposed to, as it were, an act of love? Neither of them is despicable, to spend the day with your family, or if you have no family, just to spend some time reading a book and thinking about things. But what we want to do, or at least what I want to do, is to respond to the fascinating fact that we no longer have serious holidays in which we identify ourselves as citizens. One serious holiday, of course, is July 4th. How do we celebrate July 4th? Looking at fireworks. Is that, and of course, is that the way we demonstrate our citizenship? No. Election day, interestingly, has been eroded by the fact that now you can click on and vote anytime. So there isn't a sense that you and your neighbors are saying, well, today we're taking taking citizenship seriously. It used to be, in the aftermath of the Second World War, that we had Veterans Day as a day for celebrating the great sacrifices that our fellow citizens made by dying or not dying and losing 3 or 5 years of their lives in defense of democracy. But Veterans Day has gone too. Many ways of celebrating Veterans Day is by going online at midnight and getting a super bargain. So So one important feature of Deliberation Day is that it represents us as taking as fellow citizens in the right spirit. That is, or at least in the spirit of the Enlightenment, in the spirit of Thomas Jefferson, as it were. We're not just going to vote the way we feel like it, or vote because he said something clever on the internet, or said something charismatic. We're actually going to listen to the arguments and decide on that basis in a substantial way. So how can we signify its importance when you have to make this choice between personal life and citizenship commitment, personal commitment and citizenship commitment? I say that the right analogy is jury duty. When you're called to the jury, you can't say, sorry, I don't want to go. I mean, some people evade it, but you're not allowed to. And when you serve on a jury, the Constitution says that you have to get compensated. And what I want to say is jury service is structurally identical to Deliberation Day. In the one case, you're deciding whether a person accused of a crime is legitimately to be punished. In this case, we're talking about which party should be legitimately punished and rewarded. And therefore, you should get, if you take this seriously for the whole day, a jury duty equivalent of $450. Why did I choose this number? Because this would greatly enhance the likelihood of people in the bottom half of the income distribution from actually paying attention to actually thinking of themselves as citizens. And that, it seems to me, is a fundamental value of a democracy that we treat for political selection purposes, every citizen as an equal. That's, after all, what happened. Why, until the early 20th century, women couldn't vote. Because why couldn't they vote? Well, we know they were giddy, frivolous creatures whose best place was in home. No, said the women's movement. We are just as smart or stupid as you are. But similarly, the war on poverty and all of these things are responses to the unfairness of real economic subordination, and that's an issue of a substantive issue of politics that some people will accept and some people won't. But this one is it's a foundational commitment of not Bruce's democratic theory, but any theory of a democratic republic, that all citizens should be given equal respect in their decisions. And therefore, of course, if Rich Bruce stays on the internet, he gets $450 too. The marginal utility isn't much, but nonetheless, it will be taken as a symbol of his commitment. Last thing before we move on to the next reform, what happens if people say that they're watching the debate and are playing ping pong with their kids? or answer. We have this all the time. Every hour or so, there's a attention-grabbing moment, and you have to respond within a minute, saying you're paying attention. And if you don't, well, once, okay, maybe you were going to the bathroom or something like that. But if you keep on failing, you lose your $450. You don't lose your right to continue watching, because if, okay, so I lost my $450, but I'm still a citizen. However, this is one of the large number of ways that the internet and the 21st century has actually enhanced the possibility of Enlightenment citizenship. When Jim and I first wrote our book in 2004, we wrote it, over a number of years before 2004. We were in the dark ages of the 20th century, and we had to imagine that every deliberative group of 450 had to be that we had to have buses. We had to rent every office building in the city to send people to these places that could accommodate 450 people. This was an enormous expense. We've eliminated that expense. It's much cheaper to run Deliberation Day today than before. The next reform, once again, of a very practical kind, and this is again rooted in history. We are living under the oldest constitution in the world. Well, if I asked Thomas Jefferson, we both go to, I'm a secular Enlightenment person, so both of us go to a secular Enlightenment heaven. And I say, hey, Tom, what would you do if how do you organize Deliberation Day on the internet? You say, please, or what you're talking about. We were the first country in the world to run primaries, not the kind that we have today, but from Andrew Jackson's time. There were modes of popular vote to determine who the presidential candidates should be. But we have never done something that much more modern constitutions almost universally do. We don't have a special electoral tribunal of specially constituted high-level judges with the resources to make rapid-fire decisions if there's massive cheating in Georgia, and there's screaming and yelling, and we don't know who won Georgia. Or, as in Bush against Gore, we don't know who won Florida, and as a consequence, we don't know who won the presidency. Consider, for example, the situation in a recent situation in Brazil, where Bolsonaro said he won. How was that decided? It was decided by a special electoral tribunal whose principal judge, headed by the Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court, who was selected not by Bolsonaro, serves for 15 years, et cetera, and so forth. And when they decided that, in fact, Bolsonaro lost by a very small margin. Bolsonaro then tried to have a coup. But as a consequence of this serious decision that he lost, it was much less likely for the coup to succeed. All the time, I never am making a claim that any of these things are magical solutions. But if in the next election we have the SAVE Act or whatever, what is it called, where the Trump people enact the SAVE Act, and it makes it much more difficult. In order to vote, you have to show your passport or your driver's license, but sometimes not your driver's license is not good enough, et cetera, and so forth. So there'll be millions of contested votes. And there'll be who won the election. And we don't have the resources to decide that. What we have, and I've written a book about this, we have the Vice President of the United States in a joint session of Congress deciding these issues. See? And one of the admirable features, things that we don't really appreciate about Al Gore is Al Gore in 2000 is the vice president and sitting on the and deciding whether Florida should the decision should be postponed so that you could have a final vote in Florida, final revote count in Florida. He had lost Florida by 700 votes, but there were 3,000 that hadn't been counted yet. And there were a lot of disputes. Admirable that Al Gore, rather than saying, this, it's my responsibility. It is my responsibility as the vice president to preside over this. We have to have investigations on this, and I'll have to appoint 5 people, 3 of whom happen to be Democrats and 2 Republicans, but they're all judicious, and they'll come back, et cetera, and so forth. Whatever the decision will be, it will profoundly delegitimate the process at a time in which our government structure is much less legitimate than it was in 2000. So once again, there are no constitutional problems whatsoever about creating a special electoral tribunal and then making it and giving it authority, and then in the statute instructing the vice president to obey the judgment, which the vice president might not do, causing a constitutional crisis. But it would be much more difficult. So here, so far, I've given you 3 reforms that, to be frank, are on the table of plenty of other reforms which make a lot less, well, are significant, but will not respond in this simplistic way to the question of how to reduce this chance of another demagogue. I'll conclude here. I don't know, have I gone over my time, or here I can look. In fact, I was hiding no, I have 1 minute and 15 seconds to go. I conclude with the following point. In the 1960s, the percentage of white people who graduated college was 8%. The percentage of Black people who graduated college was 4%. The percentage of high school dropouts was 50%. Today, by the time a person who was born in 2000, so by the time he or she is 25, we know this as a fact, 53% of all Americans have graduated college. For the first time in anybody's history except Japan's, the women have graduated college a little bit more than men. The 37% of Blacks have graduated college. So that means 75% of Asians have graduated college. The percentage of dropouts is 10%. These are people, by far the majority of them, are profoundly, psychologically disturbed, or they are physically incapable. So we have this. Oh yes, and then I should say that by the age of 28, 15% of all voters have a graduate degree. So twice the percentage of, twice the percentage of voters who have graduate degrees compared to the percentage who got out of graduated college in the 1960s. This is an incredible transformation of the American population. Oh, and the people who don't get out of college, who don't graduate college and who aren't dropouts, a very substantial number of those get out of community college to 2 years. So the question is, why is it that the most educated population in the history of the United States, by far, is voting for a charismatic demagogue? Now, my answer is, if you would just adopt these 3 reforms, the answer is they wouldn't have. That constitutions really do matter. But constitutions are more than a piece of paper. They are modes of designing institutions of government. A military dictatorship very often has a constitution and allocates responsibility between the super general and the other people. What we have is a constitution that was written in 1787 and revised after the Civil War, and revised again during the early 20th century, and then profoundly transformed during the New Deal and the Civil Rights Revolution. And then Ronald Reagan came in and revised it again in the name of more free markets, more skepticism about government. But he was a constitutional actor, just like all these others. But it is Trump who has shattered it. And if we don't take advantage of the opportunity, why am I confident? It's because of his foreign policy. During the first few months, he was successful in emphasizing the cultural nationalism, which was central to his campaign. Let's keep the Mexicans out. Let's keep the Canadians out. We are Americans, but he shifted to foreign policy in an altogether, if you forgive the expression, stupid fashion. It's just stupid to forget. It's blatantly unconstitutional, but it's also stupid to attack Iran when you are not capable of sending 750,000 troops to occupy Iran, while they are very 6 weeks, and that hits ordinary Americans. And who are they going to blame for that? There's only one person. He's in fact taking credit for it. Well, this is very stupid, but from the vantage point of whether he will win the midterm election and the presidential election, it is he's to spread the word and say that we should not lose this opportunity. We have this really
de la igualdad. Yo soy el moderador y por tanto no debo moderarme a mí mismo. Y hago esta reflexión solamente para subrayar la importancia que tiene para nuestra facultad y para nuestra universidad recibir la visita del profesor Ackerman y escuchar de él estas reflexiones que al tiempo de ser profundamente críticas con relación a lo que ocurre en Estados Unidos y en general en el mundo, porque ha ocupado su atención y ha dirigido sus estudios a lo que ocurre en otros espacios del planeta. Por ejemplo, sus constituciones revolucionarias incluyen un análisis no solo de la Constitución estadounidense, también de la francesa y de la italiana, y lo mismo de la Constitución de Irán, por ejemplo. De manera que estamos, repito, ante un gran acontecimiento académico en nuestra universidad. Lo hemos escuchado, yo no diría solo con atención, sino incluso con devoción. Y antes de dar la palabra a la distinguida y los distinguidos comentaristas, quiero subrayar que está presente en este espacio también la doctora Susan Rose Ackerman, quien ayer presentó una brillante disertación sobre uno de los temas en los cuales se caracteriza como una de las especialistas principales, fundamentales en el planeta, que es el tema de la corrupción. De manera que quienes tuvieron la oportunidad de escucharla ayer y tienen la oportunidad de escuchar hoy al profesor Ackerman, pueden entender que se trata de una de las parejas académicas más luminosas de nuestro tiempo. No puedo dejar de subrayar la presencia de John Ackerman, ese beneficio. De quien nos beneficiamos porque es investigador y profesor en nuestra universidad y además coordina uno de los programas más importantes que se pueden llevar a cabo en cualquier espacio democrático, que es justamente el de estudios sobre la democracia. Voy a dar a continuación la palabra a las personas que tendrán el privilegio de hacer un comentario, a quienes solicito lo hagan en un término de 10 minutos para dar la posibilidad de que también el público intervenga. Como nos dijo el profesor Ackerman, podrán dirigirle sus preguntas o comentarios en inglés o en español. Y quienes comentarán serán, en primer lugar, la doctora Andrea Pozas, investigadora del Instituto de Investigaciones Jurídicas. A continuación, el doctor Roberto Cabrera, que no tengo que decir que es profesor de la mayor parte de quienes están aquí presentes, y otro tanto puedo decir del doctor Rodrigo Brito, quien es precisamente nuestro anfitrión, de manera que no cometeré el atropello de presentarlo en su propia casa. Pero sí quiero subrayar que los tres tienen como característica, además de brillantes universitarios, de jóvenes profesores de nuestra universidad, el trabajar desde diferentes ángulos, desde diferentes puntos de vista, en temas de teoría de la Constitución, teoría de la justicia y teoría de la política. Así pues, doy en primer lugar el uso de la voz a la doctora Andrea Pozas.
Gracias. Pues muy buenas tardes, tengan todas y todos ustedes. Muchísimas gracias por la invitación, gracias a la mesa, directora, y bueno, por supuesto, al doctor Bruce Ackerman. Dado que tengo pocos minutos, voy a hacer primero, quisiera hacer una anotación que creo que es importante para todos y todas, ¿no? En su libro, The Decline and Fall of the American Republic, el doctor Bruce Ackerman plantea varias de estas reformas y de otras reformas, ¿no? Y ahora, justo para esta presentación, lo estábamos releyendo y me sorprendió muchísimo cómo en este libro se plantean muchos de los, esto se escribió cuando Obama estaba en la presidencia, ¿no? Y muchos de los problemas que está enfrentando Estados Unidos hoy están ya presentes ahí. Entonces, lo primero que me parece que es muy importante hacer notar es que desde el trabajo del profesor Bruce Ackerman, nos permite entender que Trump, si bien ha exacerbado una crisis, hay una problemática constitucional previa, ¿no? E independiente, en donde Trump se vuelve un síntoma de un problema estructural. Y esto, evidentemente, nos lleva a una de las conclusiones que planteó el profesor Ackerman en su conferencia, que es que el diseño constitucional importa. Y esto es realmente, creo que, muy importante subrayar, ¿no? Entonces, si el problema es estructural, el diseño importa, y nos tenemos que tomar en serio esto. El segundo punto que me gustaría subrayar de lo que, digamos, en términos muy generales de lo que ha dicho, es, y de lo que encontramos en el libro, es que está planteando un conjunto de reformas que plantean una visión holística, es decir, no hay esta idea de que no hay una varita mágica que con una sola reforma podamos resolver todo, ¿no? Y que tenemos que empezar a pensar en el Estado de un modo, digamos, integral. Entonces, esto es muy importante en México porque tendemos a reformar a pedacitos y eso genera problemas. Entonces, esto me parece muy importante. Ahora, digamos, más allá de estas dos primeros puntos, hay un tercer punto que también muy, muy general que me parece que quisiera resaltar antes de entrar a las preguntas que tengo para el doctor Ackerman, que es el mensaje de la importancia de la imaginación constitucional y el comprometernos a pensar a que estamos en un momento de mucha incertidumbre, de mucho cambio, y que la invitación realmente a buscar formas de imaginar soluciones y no caer como en la desesperanza, me parece que es positivo y que es muy importante, ¿no? Entonces yo quisiera recoger estas tres cosas y tengo una primera pregunta para el doctor Ackerman. Should I do it in Spanish or English? Spanish is okay, ¿sí? Entonces, digamos, algo que me parece muy interesante es que en términos comparativos, el problema del empoderamiento de los ejecutivos no es solo un problema de Estados Unidos. Es un problema que está ocurriendo en muchas latitudes del mundo y, por tanto, si bien tiene manifestaciones específicas y puede tener causas específicas, como las muestra muy bien en su trabajo, me pregunto si considera usted que hay también un conjunto de causas comunes. Es decir, si más allá de la especificidad de la Constitución norteamericana o de la Constitución, de distintas constituciones, estamos frente a un fenómeno global en donde los ejecutivos están adquiriendo un empoderamiento muy fuerte. Entonces, en particular, hay dos cuestiones que me parece, que a mí me brotan como algo que podría, que me interesaría saber qué opina. La primera es cómo se ha transformado el Estado del siglo XVIII en el caso norteamericano o de inicios del siglo XX con respecto a la Constitución de 17, cómo se ha transformado el Ejecutivo y lo que se espera del Ejecutivo en los gobiernos contemporáneos. Las políticas públicas abarcan mucho más de lo que abarcaban antes. No es solo seguridad, es salud, es educación, es cultura, hay muchos elementos del Estado contemporáneo donde el Estado clásico no intervenía. Entonces, ¿en qué medida este crecimiento de las expectativas y de lo que se pide al Estado por vía de políticas públicas, por vía de, ha empoderado a la administración y ha empoderado a los ejecutivos? Y después también el cambio de la sociedad. La sociedad se ha complejizado muchísimo y pareciera que las identidades son múltiples y cambiantes. Entonces, esta vinculación entre partidos políticos y grupos sociales se ha roto y la crisis de los partidos políticos también se ve reflejada más allá de las fronteras norteamericanas, está presente en muchas otras latitudes. Entonces, digamos, en conclusión, mi primera pregunta sería invitar al doctor Ackerman a que nos diga si considera que en términos, que estamos, digamos, comparativamente frente a un empoderamiento del Ejecutivo y si hay causas más allá de las especificidades de los países, si hay causas comunes digamos, de este empoderamiento y de esta crisis constitucional que vemos en latitudes y con diseños constitucionales múltiples. Me parece que, y aquí me parece que hay dos cosas que quisiera, para terminar, porque no quiero pasarme del tiempo, que me parecen que quisiera rescatar. La importancia que están presentes en las tres propuestas que nos presentó el día de hoy, ¿no? Uno es la dificultad en Estados Unidos, por ejemplo, en la primera propuesta de rechazar las primarias cerradas para buscar romper el extremismo de los candidatos y las candidatas. Me parece que hay un problema que tiene que ver con la representación, la dificultad de, digamos, la captura de las élites, otra vez en múltiples latitudes, y cómo pensamos, cómo podemos diseñar constitucionalmente, digamos, reconstruir el vínculo entre la sociedad y sus representantes. Aquí, digamos, esto me parece que está presente en la primera. El involucramiento de la sociedad está presente en la segunda, que es el día de deliberación, y en la tercera, el tribunal electoral. En términos concretos, me gustaría preguntarle al doctor Ackerman qué se requiere para cada una de ellas. Si entiendo bien, la primera puede hacerse solo desde la perspectiva de los partidos, no se requiere una reforma, es decir, el Partido Demócrata podría rechazar las primarias como forma de selección y entonces eso me parece muy viable, ¿no? La primera me parece viable, al menos en el Partido Demócrata. En el Partido Republicano, que ha sido tomado por Trump, me parece que sería más difícil, porque Trump creo que difícilmente querría soltar las riendas, ¿no? La segunda, sí estoy bien, pero quiero saber, es la segunda propuesta, ¿qué requiere? Requiere una ley, ¿no? Y esto requeriría que los demócratas ganen las elecciones del Congreso, ¿no? Y la tercera creo que requeriría una reforma constitucional. No sé si estoy correcta, pero creo que el incorporar un tribunal electoral probablemente requeriría una reforma constitucional, pero no estoy segura. Entonces, la pregunta sería, si pudiera aunar más, ¿qué es lo que se requiere y qué viabilidad considera que tiene esto, dado que el Partido Republicano ha caído bajo el control de Trump y que es difícil que esto cambie en el corto plazo? Y para cerrar, mi preocupación central, y es algo que creo que es un problema del constitucionalismo en general, es cómo podríamos garantizar para aquellos que no requirieron cambios constitucionales, que el día de mañana una mayoría, como la que tiene Trump hoy, no pudiera completamente deshacerse de ellas, ¿no? Entonces, how we make them stick in a way, ¿no? Entonces, estas serían como algunas de las preguntas que tengo y como no quiero pasarme, creo que aquí lo dejo. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias, doctora Posas. Por favor, doctor Cabrera.
Antes que nada, quisiera dar las gracias, John. Muchas gracias por traer a tu papá. Para mí es un honor compartir la mesa con John, que fue mi maestro de Derecho Electoral, con Rodrigo Britos, que está en mi comité tutorial, y es de mis mentores, Diego Valadez, que le guardo mucho aprecio porque el día que me recibí me regaló un libro sobre problemas constitucionales que publicó en Argentina, la doctora Sonia, que es mi jefa y un ejemplo para mí para seguir, Bruce, quien es como de los grandes pioneros del derecho constitucional comparado y que ha sido inspiración para constitucionalistas como Tim Ginsburg, por ejemplo, Richard Albert, Janif Rosnaim, quienes han estado en esta universidad y en esta facultad, y Andreas Posas, que sin duda alguna es de las grandes constitucionalistas de este país. Y yo apenas que estoy iniciando mi carrera académica, creo que solo daría las gracias por eso. Bueno, y este libro del profesor Ackerman es muy interesante porque es de allá del 2010, que básicamente es un libro profético, porque nos está dando las luces de que hay un problema de ingeniería institucional en los Estados Unidos, el cual puede desatar a todas las calamidades y desató a todas las calamidades que estamos viendo ahora. Bruce, siguiendo un poco a los padres fundadores de los Estados Unidos, los contradicen en el sentido de que para ellos la rama del Estado que iba a ser la más peligrosa iba a ser el Congreso, no el presidente. Y el Congreso y la Suprema Corte. Y lo que hemos visto actualmente es de que el Ejecutivo se ha vuelto un peligro mismo para el sistema democrático y el sistema constitucional, y no nada más en los Estados Unidos, sino en casi todo el mundo entero. Hay que ver lo que está pasando actualmente en Hungría, República Checa, incluso posteriormente a cuando hay transiciones democráticas y se salen estos ejecutivos fuertes, rancios, como el caso de Polonia, ahora que salió Paz y Justicia, pues la reconstrucción del sistema constitucional democrático sigue siendo un problema que no se arregla de un día para otro. Y Ackerman, el profesor Ackerman, en este libro profético, nos introduce 7 amenazas para la democracia desde el lejano 2010. Aclaro, 6 años antes del periodo de Donald Trump. Y todas estas se cumplieron. Presidente carismático con una agenda radical. véase a Trump ahora, y creo que el Trump que estamos viendo actualmente está sumamente más desatado. La semana pasada, antepasada, tuvimos en la UNAM a Nancy Fraser, aquí en la Facultad de Derecho, y yo le preguntaba, doctora Fraser, ¿considera este periodo de Trump parecido al fascismo? Y dice, no, el fascismo está mejor organizado que ahora, que Trump. Por ejemplo, el profesor Ackerman nos hablaba de estos líderes que pueden apelar a las emociones para saltarse esas deliberaciones democráticas que rebusquen a las instituciones. Por cierto, usted lo dijo antes que Marta Nussbaum, especialmente 8 años antes. Suprimir la colaboración entre los poderes. Esa fue una de las amenazas que dijo. Otra amenaza que puso es, que lo estamos viendo ahora, es que estos líderes, no nada más Trump, tienen estos asesores súper leales, y en Estados Unidos, por ejemplo, lo vemos con Stephen Miller, Jared Kushner, que básicamente, pues seguramente, sí, presidente, vamos a una guerra con Irán, sí, presidente, todo va a salir bien, o sea, sin estas claras, pues, sin estas claras, pues, consultorías serias, deliberativas, donde por ejemplo, usted también hablaba allá en el lejano 2010, la politización del ejército. Y, por ejemplo, eso ya sucedió en Estados Unidos con Trump en el Black Lives Matter, cuando Trump quería meter a las fuerzas del ejército a reprimir a los protestantes, allá en la época del COVID, en el 2020. El uso expansivo de poderes de emergencia. Por ejemplo, Trump quería usar ese uso de poderes de emergencia para construir el muro con México, financiar el muro con México, y apelación del pueblo para saltarse la deliberación bueno, más bien los procesos constitucionales de negociación con los otros poderes, como con el Congreso, cosa que también con el caso del muro lo vimos, diciendo, las personas votaron por mí, entonces, pues, ¿para qué tenemos que ir con el Congreso? Y séptimo, la necesidad de regular. Usted nos habla de estas amenazas de los abogados dentro de la presidencia del Ejecutivo, que básicamente, pues, se dedican a hacer órdenes ejecutivas, saltándose al Congreso y relacionados con el superleal, y básicamente saltándose todos los decretos de todas las formalidades constitucionales. Por ejemplo, yo a mis alumnos de teoría constitucional les digo, quieren ver cómo está gobernando Trump este periodo y el pasado, pues vean la ley de Herodes, ¿no? Básicamente a puro decretazo. Y desde aquel entonces, el profesor Ackerman nos propuso 5 propuestas, 5 reformas. Las menciono brevemente para complementar lo que el profesor Ackerman mencionó. Creación de un Tribunal Supremo de Control del Ejecutivo, que sería un órgano especializado que revise la legalidad de las acciones presidenciales. Fortalecer el control del Senado. Reformar un sistema de nombramientos de sus asesores. Establecer un código de ética del ejército y fortalecer los poderes del círculo presidencial, o sea, que los asesores, que no pueda tener al yerno como asesor. Y estas cuestiones, dice el profesor, esas reformas que propone, además de las que mencionó, alimentarían este principio de constitucionalismo, que es el check and balance, la división de poderes, que es base de de todo sistema político y constitucional que busque garantizar la igualdad y la libertad. Me gustaría hacerle preguntas, pero como en la facultad tenemos un podcast que aprovecho el espacio para invitarles a escucharlo. Hoy en la mañana tuvimos al profesor Ackerman en el podcast institucional de la facultad que se llama Sociedad en Crisis entre el orden y el caos. Entonces, más que hacerle una pregunta, porque hoy ya lo llené de preguntas en la mañana, sencillamente me gustaría darle las gracias por visitarnos en la UNAM, en la Facultad de Derecho. Me gustaría pedir su libro, uno de sus últimos libros, Líderes Carismáticos, va a salir a la venta el próximo mes en México. Entonces, nos gustaría, profesor Bruce, que obligue a su hijo John a traerlo más seguido a México y a la UNAM, mínimo una vez cada 2 años, at least. Y muchísimas gracias por su atención a todas y a todos.
Muchas gracias, doctor Cabrera. Y ahora le doy la palabra en su propia casa al doctor Brito. Gracias, doctor Brito.
Muchísimas gracias, doctor Valadez. Para no repetir lo que ya se ha dicho en esta mesa, simplemente quisiera dejar testimonio de que es un honor tenerlo con nosotros. Profesor, es un honor estar sentado con el doctor, junto al doctor Valadez, al doctor Ackerman, a la doctora Andrea Posesloyo, al maestro Roberto Cabrera. Yo quisiera simplemente retomar algunos aspectos de esta extraordinaria conferencia que nos brindó el... Sí. El profesor Ackerman, porque me parece algo muy importante. El profesor Ackerman parte de una premisa que es fundamental y es la premisa con la que inicia su libro. Él nos dice, el pensamiento constitucional se encuentra en una fase de triunfalismo. Triunfalismo porque siempre pensamos en lo que hemos hecho, siempre pensamos en la forma en que se ha construido nuestra tradición constitucional, siempre pensamos en aquello que establecieron los constituyentes, los padres fundadores, ¿sí? Y rendimos de alguna manera un culto que no nos deja ver lo que está delante, ¿sí? Y que no nos hace pensar en que ese diseño, como nos ha explicado hoy el profesor Ackerman, ese diseño que se pensó para 1787, quizás sería un diseño que tendríamos que cuestionar, un diseño que por el contexto que estamos viviendo, tal vez ya no corresponda al siglo XXI. Quizá no nos hemos dado cuenta que el derecho, y eso lo dice también el profesor Ackerman, el derecho sigue a la vida y que nuestras instituciones y que la ingeniería constitucional, como ya se mencionaba en esta mesa, pues esa ingeniería constitucional, ese diseño al que le rendimos pleitesía, muchas veces se queda corto en los escenarios que son propios de nuestro tiempo, ¿no? El profesor Ackerman nos decía que en ocasiones nos olvidamos de que el cambio constitucional se logra con un ejercicio verdadero de la ciudadanía, que ese cambio se podría lograr, y él pone sobre la mesa 3 reformas interesantísimas, si asumimos ese compromiso para pensar en que somos verdaderamente agentes de ese cambio. El cambio solamente se puede dar, además, con una lucha constante por parte de las diversas fuerzas sociales, una lucha que tiene que ver con, pues, la idea de sobrevivir, con la idea de prosperar y, ¿por qué no?, lo dice el profesor Ackerman, con la idea de dominar. Por ello, me parece que es necesario que, como lo dijo el profesor Ackerman, entendamos muy bien las patologías del sistema, ¿sí?, del sistema que vivimos y ese sistema en el contexto en el que nos encontramos, ¿sí? Entender las instituciones que pues se concibieron hace 200 años o más de 200 años en los Estados Unidos, hace más de 100 años en México, en un contexto que ofrece elementos novedosos que nos hacen repensar precisamente a esas instituciones. Él nos decía, pues las primarias que se concibieron hace mucho tiempo, pues los padres o quienes concibieron las primarias no pensaban que ese diseño podría fomentar pues el extremismo que se vive, por ejemplo, en los Estados Unidos, ¿no? Y eso que se está dando el día de hoy es porque la manera en que se entendían las instituciones hace pues muchos años no puede ser la misma, ¿sí?, en la que las entendemos hoy. El diseño constitucional que se concibió entonces, pues no puede tener los mismos efectos y es lo que nos ha invitado a lo largo de su presentación el doctor Ackerman a repensar. Ya lo decía el profesor Roberto Cabrera, se habló muchísimo, se discutió mucho sobre cuál era la rama menos peligrosa. Hay un libro de Alexander Bickel que nos dice, pues la rama menos peligrosa podría pensarse que era en principio el Poder Judicial, y los debates se daban pensando en cuál sería la rama menos peligrosa, pero no pensamos en cuál podría ser ese poder que podría poner sobre la mesa mayores riesgos para nuestra sociedad. Los triunfos del presidencialismo, ¿sí?, de ese presidencialismo que tiene características muy precisas, como ha señalado el profesor Ackerman, esos triunfos que en el pasado pues prepararon el camino para pues un futuro en el que se pensaba o basado en la soberanía popular. Hoy en día ese mismo camino abre las puertas a un futuro complejo, a un futuro severo, ¿sí? Y la institución que se había sustentado como la presidencia en una tradición basada en la soberanía popular, hoy, con los cambios que existen en nuestra sociedad y en nuestros contextos, pues amenaza como su principal agente de destrucción, ¿sí? Esas mismas instituciones, y me parece que, como lo decía el profesor Ackerman, a veces lo olvidamos, esas mismas instituciones que buscaban asegurar un sistema de pesos y contrapesos, pues se convirtieron en el vehículo para el populismo y para la puesta en jaque del Estado de Derecho. Los riesgos para la democracia están ahí, pero también están ahí las propuestas. Estas reformas de las que nos habló el profesor Ackerman, creo que nos invitan a repensar la manera en que debemos entender nuestros textos constitucionales, entender que los textos constitucionales, como decía él, no solamente son una hoja de papel, sino son un instrumento para cambiar nuestros contextos, para modificar nuestras instituciones. Porque a veces buscamos los riesgos de la democracia muy lejos, ¿no? El profesor Ackerman escribe en su obra que a veces estamos pensando en los conflictos que pueden darse en Oriente Medio, que pueden darse en otras latitudes, y no nos damos cuenta que muchas veces esos riesgos para la democracia están más cerca de lo que pensamos. Él dice, pues en los Estados Unidos se piensa que hay pues riesgos a nuestro sistema democrático y buscamos a los enemigos fuera de casa, pero a veces nos damos cuenta que esos enemigos pueden estar más cerca de lo que pensamos. Entonces, la invitación que él nos hace, y creo que es la invitación que deberíamos tomar, es que si seguimos celebrando nuestra larga tradición constitucional, tanto la tradición de los Estados Unidos como la tradición mexicana, nuestros grandes triunfos a finales del siglo XVIII o a principios del siglo XX, si seguimos pues rindiendo este homenaje en coros de pues complacencia, pues el riesgo está ahí. Sí, el riesgo de que esas instituciones que funcionaron en un momento determinado abran la puerta a escenarios totalmente distintos, pues es un riesgo latente. Y precisamente, y con esto termino, creo que pues lo que nos invita el profesor Ackerman es a que volteemos la mirada a la realidad y tomemos la ocasión para un verdadero cambio constitucional. Yo debo decir, y el doctor Valadez lo sabe, que muchas veces pues me expresaba partir de una especie de pesimismo, ¿sí?, ante la realidad que vivimos. Pero cada vez que escucho a mi querido doctor Valadez, cada vez que escucho a personajes como el profesor Ackerman, creo que pues, se está sembrando en mí lo que decía el doctor Valadez, ese optimismo constructivo que se da precisamente a partir de pues, el análisis de nuestra realidad, el repensar nuestras instituciones y pues también de alguna forma ver en el futuro una oportunidad que debemos tomar para cambiar nuestra realidad. Muchísimas gracias.
Hemos escuchado 3 inteligentes comentarios que muestran, por otra parte, el profundo conocimiento que los comentaristas tienen con relación a la obra del profesor Ackerman. Han sido hechas llegar a la mesa 3 preguntas y ahora consulto al profesor Ackerman si desea hacer una reflexión final con relación a lo que han expresado los comentaristas y a las preguntas que han sido hechas llegar. Pueden hacérnoslas llegar, por favor. Si toma un minuto está bien, por favor, adelante. Sí, pero por favor en un minuto, si es tan amable. Adelante.
French election process. So I think I don't want to focus only in the USA and France. I think the democracy is beyond the parties. And my question is democracy perfect? Is democracy open to manipulation? And is still democracy the best way to rule a party, to rule the government? Thank you, Mr. Bruce.
¿Desea hacer uso de la palabra? Por un minuto, si es tan amable.
So I heard all of your conversation that you had with the people in the auditorium and the people in the table. So I have to ask, though, I have one question. I think, as Hannah Arendt says, banality of evil is an essential factor for governments, in this case for Trump, to be in charge. How Americans voted for him? They thought it wasn't that bad, or they thought it wasn't a big deal, or he wasn't talking seriously, because sometimes as a Latin person who has people in United States working not only as aliens but also in a residence, I have to wonder though, why is it that people thought that maybe he wasn't talking like that much seriously? Because as I am seeing the things outside of the U.S., I'm thinking that maybe people voted for him because they thought that maybe he wasn't that serious, he wasn't that evil, he wasn't that despicable. And I think, as for me, that's a concern for all the people in all of the world, not only in American democracy, but in every place. Because if we don't see seriously the things that we are seeing in front, why we are taking so much time to see the things that are going through the government and the parties in this case, for example. And I would like to just last this comment by saying that I thank so much for all the conversation that you were doing in the auditorium. I actually learned a lot of things that I didn't know actually. And I just wanted to say that like I am a little bit worried. I'm not on the optimistic side, but I understand that maybe we have to at a certain point to have this optimistic moment, because if we don't, who is the one who is going to take who is going to get the good news? After all, we are humans before citizens. We're humans before any political or juridic statement. And I'm just, that's my question, why people banalize evil in the politics and the forces that are in our states, whether it's a democracy or not. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Escucharemos una última pregunta de la compañera, por favor, aquí en la primera fila. Le van a dar el micrófono y le suplico un minuto, si es tan amable.
This is such an honor to meet someone as remarkable as you. And my question, I'll be quick to make it, is there is the possibility that Trump had taken advantage before now of the wrong idea that there's only two parties, Democrats and Republicans, to earn his victory, using this extremism in his speeches to reinforce the lack of the liberalism and promoting the division instead of the unity of the American people. I want to know, what do you think about this, that he used this as a propaganda to earn his victory? Thank you.
Concluiremos con una pregunta adicional, por favor.
Thank you very much. Just briefly, and thank you, Roberto, and all the team for having this amazing table. Thank you, Professor and Ackerman family, Ackerman Rose family. Quickly, United States during history sold us, or at least we bought, you were the best democracy in the world. Actually, how do you support or stand that in these conflicts like Iran, this war, and democracy at inside? How, as an intellectual that has been passing during the years, several presidents, how do you express right now American democracy? Thank you. Besides thinking of the July 4th and that background that you made, how do you explain and defend your democracy? Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Muestran las preguntas que nos hicieron llegar y las que se expresaron verbalmente, el enorme interés que ha suscitado la conferencia. Estoy seguro de que si abriera el micrófono habría muchos más que se apuntarían, pero no debemos abusar del tiempo y le pido al profesor Ackerman hacer uso de la palabra.
Well, obviously I can't answer all the questions with this, the elaboration that they deserve, but let's begin with a very distinctive fact that Donald Trump in his second term is acting very differently from Donald Trump in his first term. So when you say, why did when people voted for Donald Trump this time, for many reasons, but they had every reason to suppose that they were voting for the same Trump as last time. After all, this is a very distinctive situation. This is only the second time in history that a president wins, then he loses, then he wins. My first response is people are not getting what they voted for. Forget about my efforts to make it more elaborate and self-conscious. And so that is a feature of betrayal, which has happened before in the past, where people thought they were voting for a second term and got something very different. The next point is how different it is asked in different ways in these questions. How different is the how does the country express the very different nations that were didn't exist in 1787? I would put it a little differently. The United States, the people of New York in 1787, or the people of Georgia in 1787, did not think of themselves as Americans first. They thought of themselves as New Yorkers. Now, what we have seen over the last 250 years, this is also true, I should say, of Mexico. What we see in the last 250 years, because of the transformation of work, because of the transformation of the media, because of the extraordinary transformation of the education levels of the typical person. I consider myself a citizen of the world. Now that's really, isn't that remarkable? No, that's what the United Nations is. The United Nations is an institution for the world. The World Bank is an institution for the world, which is more important to Mexico's economy. What the World Bank is going to do, or what the German government is going to do. Answer: World Bank. And we recognize that. So our self-understanding of our political identity is multiple. I'm a citizen of the United States. I'm a citizen of well, put it this way, the Enlightenment West. I, however, also have a relationship to what's going on in Japan. And what's going on in China. And what's going on in India. Yet, we have no deep historical or relationship to any of these places. So the complexity of experience and national identity can be expressed in a very small way, which nonetheless is telling. Consider NAFTA. That was a remarkable effort in the 1990s to organize North America as a strong political entity. It was successful and then it failed. Then we have, why did it fail? Well, that's a very interesting question and requires a more complex than we can do it here, analysis of what's happening in domestic politics in the United States, in Canada, and in Mexico. Now, Trump is unilaterally and illegally, what else is new, saying NAFTA is over and so is the replacement. I always get the countries wrong. What is it? The Mexican, the Canadian-Mexican United States agreement or whatever. That's coming to an end too. Well, this is serious. But there is a plus, as always, plus side of things. we often talk about the Hispanic population of the United States. This is a grotesque simplification. There are 2 million Cubans. There are 2 million more, 3 million Puerto Ricanos. Then there are a lot of Mexican Americans who understand themselves as Mexican Americans. Paradoxically, they have been the least political force in the United States. Voting percentages are low for Mexican Americans compared to any other group of Mexican Americans represent maybe 4%, 5% of the entire population. That isn't so. What you should be doing, and while Trump is here, is saying this is outrageous. We are a community here. Of course, the Mexicans have cultural and economic interests that are different from the Americans, but we have many interests in common, and we have families, which have for centuries moved between Los Angeles and the South every week. This is something to be preserved. How do we do that? So regional political organization is a crucial component of Reconstruction that in the face of the complete end of the American-created constitutional world order, which, whatever one thought about it, existed and could be changed. Now it no longer exists. What we need to do is reconstruct plausible relationships across borders. And this Mexican-American border is a paradigmatic example of a positive possibility, which in terms of American politics is very significant. If you make a big deal of Trump's elimination and making, declaring both Canada and Mexico enemies, well then, that will generate much greater levels of political activity in the Mexican-American community north of the border, and that might swing Arizona. Well, that's all we need, but to go back to the beginning, in the beginning, the population of the United States at the first census was 2 million whites, 1.5 million blacks, and maybe, although we're just guessing here, 80 or 90 million indigenous. There's a little sliver on the Atlantic. How did this little sliver become the United States of America? Right. The Constitution of the United States was approved by vote in each of the states. The number of people who voted, because women didn't vote, but also not all men voted. You had to have property requirement. So there were 410,000 Americans who voted to approve the Constitution of the United States, and they voted, to simplify it, 210,000 to 190,000. Incredible that we're bowing down to this moment. It was the beginning moment, just as in 1809 there was a beginning moment in Mexico. But you don't just bow down to that. The modern creation of the presidency is a creation of the 20th century. We had a parliamentary system in the 19th century. The president, except during times of war, was the presiding officer. That's what the president meant. The most important figure in the American government was the Speaker of the House. Why? Because the House was the only directly elected body. What happens in the 20th century is the rise of the presidency, and then I'll just end, as symbolized by the fact that until 1912, no president after Jefferson ever went to Congress to give the State of the Union address. He just handed a piece of paper to the House, Speaker of the House, and the Speaker of the House read it, didn't read out loud, and then summarized it in 2 paragraphs. No, says Woodrow Wilson, the President of the United States has been elected with a mandate, etc. And the crucial event, next crucial event, was the radio, and Franklin Roosevelt giving a fireside chat directly to the American people, not to Congress. This is what Adolf Hitler was doing too. See, this was not what most respectable politicians were doing. On the BBC, they weren't broadcasting the Prime Minister until the Second World War. Now, and this goes to your point, now we have this, it seems obvious that there is a personification of the nation. Mm-hmm. This was not, this was just what the founders didn't want, because the personification of the nation was, of course, the king. Well, in any event, what we have here is the redefinition of how we understand our American identity, but also the recognition that being American isn't enough. And now this must be also the case for major countries around the world, because they can't any longer even remotely rely on the United States to be the backup for political, military, and social order. Well, I must say this has been really a fascinating conversation, and encourages me, because the next volume in this series is going to be about the relationship between basically the North and South America, because I don't talk about the United States in this other stuff from a foreign relations point of view. But here we are. Thank you. Do you know who wrote this?
I have something for you.
Okay.
La señora directora me dejó la honrosa encomienda de entregar al profesor Ackerman El siguiente reconocimiento dice así: la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México y la Facultad de Derecho otorgan el presente reconocimiento al profesor Bruce Ackerman por su participación como ponente en la conferencia magistral Reconstructing Democracy and the Rule of Law After Trump, realizada en el auditorio Antonio Martínez Báez de la Facultad de Derecho el 19 de marzo de 2026. Firma la doctora Sonia Venegas Álvarez. Tengo el honor de entregárselo al profesor Ackerman. Muchas gracias a todos los presentes y a todos los presentes.